Now, when we love movies, it is time to take a look at some of the big movie stories from the week. And joining me over the phone is Andy McCarroll. Now, Andy, we're going to start with some films which are currently either in pre-production or they're currently shooting at the moment. Now, the first out of the traps is Passion of the Christ 2. Now, I remember, it must have been about 2 years ago, Mel Gibson, when he was still very much a Hollywood pariah, he was saying that he wanted to follow up his huge box office behemoth and that he was going to look at the resurrection. So what is happening, Andy? Has he strayed away from that particular story that he wanted to tell? Or is this the one that is actually going to get in front of the cameras fairly soon?
Well, Jim Caviezel has signed on. He's going to be reprising his role as Jesus Christ, not the superstar. And it looks like it's going ahead. Like you said there, it's going to be the resurrection. It's going to focus more around the stories that came out after Christ's death. So it looked like he's going to cover the resurrection as long as Dante's Inferno. So this is going to be quite a visual story, like very much like in the vein of What Dreams May Come, but a lot darker.
Okay.
It seems like I got to speak to him when he was over recently for the Daddy's Home sequel, and I kind of got the impression that his role in Daddy's Home was very much a test to see could he work within the studio again, could he go, a whole press tour without an incident, and he seems to have passed that test with flying colours, and they've greenlit the resurrection now, so the follow-up to the biggest independent film of all time looks like it's coming.
Yeah, he funded that all himself. I think the budget alone at the time was like 50 million and he paid for that himself, and talk about reaping the rewards. So he's very much, would it be fair to say Mel Gibson is back?
Yeah, it very much looks like it is. I really do enjoy him as a filmmaker. I think he is absolutely fantastic, and I think it's a real shame he's had so many issues with his personal life, because I think he is one of the last great filmmakers. I think he really focuses on original stories, which is something not a lot of people really do anymore. They tend to go for sequels or established properties. He seems to make films that on paper shouldn't work. Like a film about William Wallace, a film about the last days of Christ. Doesn't sound like it should work, but he makes them into these absolute epics, and I'm very much looking forward to see what he does with it, especially with the kind of the Dante, what Mel Gibson's version of hell would look like. I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I think we're all are. I think it might be peeking inside his mind there, all right. Now, a couple of films, one of which has just been greenlit, Bad Boys 3. I've no interest in this whatsoever, to be perfectly honest with you, Andy. I know Joe Carnahan, who directed the likes of Smoking Aces, and he recently, he also made The Grey with Liam Neeson. He finished the script for Death Wish, but then when he heard that Bruce Willis was attached, he said, I'm out of here. Can't be working with Bruce Willis. He's an absolute pain. But I don't know if they're working off his script still, but Bad Boys 3 is happening.
Yeah, going from a filmmaker making original films to two filmmakers who seem to be just making remakes. It's two directors who are also involved in another film called Beverly Hills Cop 4. So they seem to be, they've been signed to Jerry Bruckheimer's production company and just seem to be going through playing the greatest hit there. Bad Boys 3 has a title. It's going to be called Bad Boys for Life. And Will Smith and Martin Lawrence will be coming back. Also on the back of this, there's going to be a spin-off TV series.
Oh,
and I did enjoy. I loved the first film. I thought it was a really, really grounded action film, but a bit of 90s excess. The second film is just absolutely bananas. There's blow up pretty much half of Cuba at one point. But like you said, it's hard to kind of get excited for these things 10 years after their prime.
Yeah, I don't know. And Will Smith, he's not really the box office draw that he once was. I think he's a little bit all over the place. I think he's even suffering with a bit of an identity crisis, because Bright was just savaged by the critics. Suicide Squad, very much in the same vein. Now he started taking up vlogging. It's almost like he doesn't know what he is anymore. And do you think maybe it's a case with Will Smith? I'm going to go back to the well and try and choose a property that's worked before in the past, and fingers crossed it might work again?
Yeah, that kind of seems to be a trend. Like, people, if they're having a couple of failures, they tend to go back to the well of what made them successful in the first place. It doesn't seem to work. Like you see with Zoolander, with Anchorman, with all these films, if you wait, 10 years between it, the interest just isn't there anymore. I can see it doing, it getting well. People still kind of want to like Will Smith, but is Bad Boys 3 the answer to kind of saving him? I think he missed the trick with Independence Day. If it could have been a much different film with that could have started off a revival. But
do you know what I think he messed up on, Andy? Was when he decided to make Men in Black 3 as opposed to Django Unchained. He was Tarantino's first choice for that movie, and when he passed on it, he was the one who recommended Jamie Foxx for the role. I think things would have been a lot different for Will Smith if he had taken on Django, because he would have been seen in a different light with that movie, as opposed to making these safe movies. And The Bad Boys, to me, seems like a safe move for him in order to try and get back some box office cred, because it really is gone a bit pear-shaped from... Now, another film which is shooting, one film which is shooting at the moment, is the new Halloween. Now, I've got to say, Andy, I'm very excited for this, because really everyone that's involved, their heart is in the right place, because this is going to be the proper sequel to Halloween, as opposed to some sort of diluted sequel that we've had to endure over the years.
Yeah, just when we were putting this story up on the site, we've kind of done a quick finger count of the Halloween films. It's been 10 so far, and the consensus seems to be maybe 3 of them are acceptable. One is a classic, and 2 of them are acceptable. We've had those god-awful Rob Zombie remakes as well, but this really looks like it could be something different. Like Danny McBride, who, we know from kind of Eastbound and Down, and we're going to speak later about the Crocodile Dundee advertisements. He seems like he's really, he's going out of his way to say, this is not going to be a comedy. We are absolutely respectful of the original material. John Carpenter has a screenwriting credit as well, and David Gordon Green, who will be directing it as well, has just, he was one of the producers and writers on Jake Gyllenhaal's Stronger. So it's not just comedy background for this. And with Jamie Lee Curtis on board, even though she was killed, I think, in the last film, I think this could be something really, really different and special. And I think it's been a while since we've had a classic horror film from that trope really do well. Like the Child's Play films are kind of going straight to video. And you've got, Friday the 13th, the real remakes that kind of failed. I think this could be really good. Like, I really enjoyed Halloween H2O. If they get something kind of in that vein, I'd be happy enough with that.
Yeah, we were talking about this a few weeks ago, and it's very much going to be a direct follow-up to the first film. And it's almost going to just bypass all the sequels as if they never happened whatsoever. And it will pick up Jamie's Laurie Strode's character's story 40 years on. Dean Cundy, for any of the real movie geeks, who was a cinematographer on the first film, he's also back. And Carpenter's composing the score. It all looks like it's pointing in the right direction. Now, you mentioned Danny McBride, Dundee, and it has been revealed, Andy, that we all thought it was going to happen, that there was going to be this Crazy Crocodile Dundee sequel / spin-off was in the works, but unfortunately, no.
No, sadly, the Brisbane Times, where I get all my news, of course, has confirmed that it's actually going to be a Tourism Australia Super Bowl spot. There's this fantastic trailer out at the moment. I definitely encourage people to check it out, with Margot Robbie, Russell Crowe, Chris Hemsworth, pretty much everyone who's Australian. So I think the whole point of the Super Bowl trailer is going to be, the reveal with Paul Hogan coming back. Sadly, it's not going to be a feature film with... I'd say they were trying to kind of take the pulse on this one, and maybe they're going to make one, but you wonder with the momentum they've built up, would it still have the same effect?
I think if they were going to do it, they'd have to have the all-star the cast that they have in the trailer featuring in the movie as well. Here's just a little bit from that Dundee trailer.
What do you mean Dundee's lost in the outback? He is the outback.
Nobody talks about Mick like that.
Careful with that knife, mate. It's pretty sharp.
A knife? How big?
What do you mean there's 2 of them?
I don't just own this newspaper, son. I own this country. And Dundee's gonna learn who the most dangerous animal in Australia is. It's me.
Now, Andy, speaking of trailers, a big one landed this week for Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, this looks really... I thought the first Ant-Man was kind of the unsung hero of the Marvel Universe. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was very funny, very self-contained. It was one that ended with, with a Thomas the Tank Engine fighting a house, as opposed to a blue light from the sky and the whole world going to be sucked into a vacuum. This looks like they're kind of up in the stakes, but very much keeping the vein of the original. There's a ridiculous scene in the trailer where they throw a Hello Kitty Pez dispenser, which, goes from small to huge and takes out a motorcyclist. So I think Paul Rudd is absolutely incredible in these films. That was a great, great get for them. Like, he's not your typical action hero. He's very much the likeable everyman, even though you can see in the last film and in this film now, of course, he has the Marvel muscles now, but still very much an entertaining actor.
Hold on. You gave her wings?
And blasters.
So I take it you didn't have that tech available for me?
No, I did.
And finally, Andy, Cloverfield 4, by all accounts, it's been completed.
Yeah, well, Cloverfield 3 hasn't even come out yet. Now Cloverfield 4, it's been confirmed, has already been shot. This originally was called Overlord, and kind of there's rumours circling that it's going to be renamed to Operation Cloverfield. The film takes place during World War II, so it's kind of getting away from the present day and the futuristic of the last ones, and it centres on the survivors of a US platoon in France. And they're looking for a church that supposedly has a German radio blocking signal for their radios. They end up finding a mad Nazi scientist who's trying to use dead bodies to create super soldiers. Again, this kind of feels very much in the same way 10 Cloverfield Lane is, and The God Particle that we're going to speak about later. It wasn't conceived as a Cloverfield film. This is just something that, a film in limbo that doesn't really have anything, an original property. If you throw the Cloverfield name on it now, it'll add an extra 50, 60 million to the box office. So it'll be interesting to see how they tie in a World War II story to, the original Cloverfield, which I think is still probably my favourite monster movie of all time. I know you're a big monster movie fan and you'll probably shoot me down for that statement, but I really, really enjoyed that film, and I think everything kind of after that has just been riding the coattails.
I would say it's one of the better found footage films, Andy. Let me put it that way. But listen, Andy, thank you so much for that. Some great movie news there. Andy will be back a little later on We Love Movies, as we'll be looking ahead to some of the must-see films which are coming down the tracks in 2018.
Round 2, fight.
Now on We Love Movies, it is time for the latest movie news, and the man with it all is Andy McCarroll. Now, Andy, I was actually surprised to read that Paul King of Paddington fame, the filmmaker, the writer and director of that series, which has been getting huge acclaim, he is going to take the helm of a Roald Dahl adaptation that I thought there's no way they're going to bring that back to the big screen, but they are. Reveal all.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be Willy Wonka is getting the remake treatment. Like you said there, I was kind of apprehensive about that. Like the original with G.M. Wilder is one of my all-time favourite films. The remake with Tim Burton is one of the worst things I've ever seen. Yeah. And it's a kind of a film that it doesn't need to be remade, but with the director of Paddington, I don't know, have you seen the two Paddington films?
I have indeed, yeah. They're very sweet, very charming.
They're absolutely fantastic, and that's exactly the kind of the tone I'd like to see take with this. Like, I'd no interest in seeing a Willy Wonka film, like the same way I had no interest in seeing a Paddington film, let alone two of them. But what he done with those films, it's absolutely fantastic. It's definitely something that gets the spirit of the Roald Dahl books.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think we might see a different type of Willy Wonka to what we could be expecting, because I don't know necessarily if this is going to be a straight adaptation of Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, because there are rumours that this, in fact, could be an origin story. Have you heard about that, Andy?
Yeah, there's been kind of two stories set now. It's either going to be an origin story for Wonka, or it's going to be kind of a semi-sequel with Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. Or they could just do all three into one film. You wouldn't know. But an origin story for Wonka, yeah, it's very intriguing. It's not something that's Roald Dahl really jumped into too much himself. So there is a lot of leeway there you could do with. But to be honest, I'd kind of rather see the glass elevator story, if I'm honest.
Yeah, because like that hasn't made its way up onto the big screen. And Roald Dahl, he had no time for the Gene Wilder version. Yet his estate said they were delighted with what Tim Burton did with Johnny Depp, which it's hard to get your head around that, because that film was an absolute travesty, which you mentioned. Andy, let's just hear now a little bit of the great Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka.
What is this, Wonka? Some kind of fun house?
Why, having fun?
Oh, wait a minute, what's all that small print there at the bottom?
Oh, if you have any problems, dial information. Thank you for calling. I'm a trifle deaf in this ear. Speak a little louder next time. The suspense is terrible.
He's gonna go this time.
I hope it'll last.
It's going to be a tough act to follow Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka. Just look what Johnny Depp did, wasn't he? Absolutely horrendous. So whoever gets that role as the new Willy Wonka, they will have their work cut out for them. But Andy, staying with all things Roald Dahl, because there is another adaptation in the works with Back to the Future director Robert Zemeckis at the helm.
Yeah, they're looking at doing a remake of The Witches, of course, the Angelica Houston film, which I scared the life out of me as a child. Now, that was especially the scene in the hotel where they're taking off the shoes, terrified the life out of me. Robert Zemeckis, I think, is a really good choice. Of course, he directed the Back to the Future film, so he has kind of got that, kid-adult thing nailed down. It's very interesting as well that they went out their way to say that it's not going to be, they're not building a Roald Dahl universe, which seems to be the kind of the rage now. they are going to be very separate films, which I was happy to hear. But it is something I'd be intrigued to watch anyway.
Yeah, very true. Because they, again, The Witches, go back to Roald Dahl, that was directed by Nicholas Roeg, who made the likes of Don't Look Now, hence why his version is really out there. And Roald Dahl hated it. So it's a tough man to please.
He seems like going to say a very hard man to please.
He really is. Well, he's no longer with us, is old Roald Dahl, so maybe the filmmakers might have a little bit more creative license. Just to move on, now, The Force Awakens, Andy, it has been reappraised by a lot of people who weren't fans of The Last Jedi. But there are talks that The Force Awakens wasn't going to be its original title.
No, it was actually going to be called The Shadow of the Empire, which kind of ties in more with the games as well. Along with that as well, it also had instead of just Darth Vader's helmet appearing as well, it was going to be a lot of flashbacks with Anakin and Vader appearing as sort of a Force ghost, very much, tormenting and trying to improve on Kylo Ren's progress. Again, kind of happy that didn't go through. Hayden Christensen apparently had said he'd been approached during the early scripting phase if that's something he'd be interested in. He, of course, said yes, because what else would he be doing? But thankfully that was written out when J.J. Abrams came on board.
Now, I'm just moving on to another story which has been getting a lot of attention. Now, this new Peter Rabbit film, I saw it last week, and I have to hold off my thoughts until early March when it's out, because we're also going to have Donald Gleeson on the show. But it's definitely not the Peter Rabbit that a lot of Beatrix Potter fans would expect. It's by no means a quaint tale. But there's a lot of people not happy with a scene in the movie, Andy. Can you explain all?
Yeah, there's a scene in the movie where the character who says he has an allergy to raspberries, I think it is with blackberries, he's being peppered with them by people and is kind of used as a way to hurt him. Now, of all people to complain about the scene, the Kids with Food Allergies Foundation has said this is encouraging bullying and that this is going to encourage people in school to, people could have a peanut allergy or an allergy to whatever. It's going to encourage this kind of behaviour in school to start bullying the other kids. Apparently they've protested the film as well on the basis of this, and the filmmakers have actually come out and apologised for the scene and said it will be removed on the DVD and the Blu-ray version of the film.
You're joking, they're going to remove it? Oh.
Yeah, I'd rather they remove James Corden from the film, to be honest. But
moving on now to Venom. The trailer was released, and it's very hard to make people happy these days, but an awful lot weren't happy with this.
Yeah, I think the main problem they had is that there was no Venom in the Venom trailer. This film seems strange from the off. Like Tom Hardy playing, it doesn't seem like a kind of film he'd do, like a Venom spin-off, of a Spider-Man villain. It's a strange one for him to do, and the trailer didn't really touch on a lot of the characteristics of the stuff. It's not going to have any Spider-Man in it, apparently. The symbiote was visible for barely a second, and of course they didn't reveal the character at all, which, you can kind of applaud them in one way. It's trying to keep as much on their wraps before the film's release, but a character like that isn't particularly well known, or is only well known for when Topher Grace played him in Spider-Man 3. You kind of want to get people buzzed about this film, especially on the back of all the Super Bowl trailers that came out. And I don't think they've done that. Like, a lot of the fans that watched kind of went, is that it? It's just kind of Tom Hardy freaking out in an MRI machine. So it didn't tell you what the story is about, where it's going. But again, it's just a teaser trailer, so it's got people talking, which is what they wanted to do. Yeah,
there's been a few prominent filmmakers have torn it to shreds, this particular teaser trailer, saying it definitely felt like it was rushed and wasn't ready, hence why there's been a bit of a backlash. Here's a little bit from the trailer to Venom.
Everyone's got their thing. Maybe it's a breakup, a death, an accident. Whatever it is, you used to be one thing. Now, you're something else.
And finally, Andy, in our movie news section, back to the world of Star Wars, because it's long been mooted that one of the next Star Wars story spin-offs that we're going to see is Obi-Wan Kenobi, as sort of an origin story. And there's one particular director going to be the one to make that happen. That's Stephen Daldry of The Reader fame. So, but we could be seeing this movie shot in Ireland.
Yeah, apparently George Lucas was spotted in Belfast. He was scouting locations up in Northern Ireland. Now, that's strange because he's signed off the rights to Disney, but apparently in the spin-offs he's had a very much a hands-on role. He actually directed a scene in the Solo spin-off that's coming up. And it's looking like it's going to be shooting next year up in Northern Ireland with the working title of Joshua Tree, which I think they're going to have to change now that everyone's going to be scouring the Northern Ireland countryside looking for people with Joshua Tree on their back. It's interesting that they've kind of gone in this direction as well, especially with the backlash that Solo seems to be getting, where you've got a very definitive end for where this film can go. But there is a lot you can tap into, like when Obi-Wan gives Luke and Leia away and then retreats back to Tatooine. There's a story there to be told. You know, was he hiding? What was he doing? Was he trying to keep them safe during that time? I'd rather see them do spin-offs of characters that we haven't seen already, or stories we haven't been told. Similar to the Solo film, you kind of know where this is going. There's not an awful lot of wiggle room you can do there, especially with a director like Stephen Jolliffe, who likes to make original films like the Billy Elliot and The Reader as well. I don't know if this is something that's going to suit him either, but if it's being shot in Northern Ireland, I'm definitely going to be up there trying to scour myself apart in it.
I'm just really intrigued that George Lucas has been brought into the fold, but that just goes to show you that how things are all over the place behind the scenes at Lucasfilm, that they're bringing El Georgie Porgy back. Andy, thank you so much for that. That's all the big movie stories from the week, and that is part one of We Love Movies to a close. But Andy will be back, as he'll be going through some of the worst films he reckons will be hitting cinemas in 2018. Plus, we'll be reviewing Guillermo del Toro's new film, The Shape of Water, and we'll be hearing from the man himself. That's all to come very shortly on We Love Movies.